I felt the gunshot before I saw my friend hit the ground, an echo that ripped through the laughter by the pool like thunder cracking glass. Mid-afternoon sun glinted off the water, turning the scene into a surreal tableau of bright swimsuits and blue tiles, until the boom of that single shot splintered the calm. I spun toward the cabana, heart slamming, and saw David crumple against the lounge chair, a crimson bloom spreading across his shirt. HOA Karen stood frozen, phone clutched to her ear, eyes wild beneath her sunflower hat. They tried to drown out the community with their noise, and I had to stop them, she screamed into the receiver, tears of self-righteous fury streaming down her cheeks. My vision narrowed to the pistol she brandished, a heavy, silver piece she'd apparently pulled from her oversized purse, and the spiraling arc of his body collapsing into the deck. Blood pounded in my ears as I lunged for David, my arms shifting him into a safer position as guests scattered in panic. Karen's shrill wail grew louder. "Call the police! Call the police!" But her outrage rang hollow against the gunshot's finality. My mind raced. David was bleeding fast, and he wasn't my only priority in the far side of the pool. Half a dozen smiling HOA families huddled in fear, their pool floats abandoned like broken toys. I hit record on my phone, pressing it against my chest, so the lens captured both Karen's desperate cries and David's pallid face. "Neighbors, active shooter at the HOA spring pool party," I announced, voice raw but urgent. "Karen shot my friend over a noise complaint." I repeat, she shot him. Live emergency response incoming. The camera panned to Karen, frozen in horror, then back to David's labored breaths. Comments exploded with panic and outrage, summoning dozens of viewers. Sirens wailed in the distance already, but I knew that wouldn't be enough. Within minutes, lights danced in the periphery as my SWAT team rolled into the cul-de-sac tanker trucks, black-clad officers, armored Humvees. I felt my legs buckle as they deployed, kicking open the HOA clubhouse doors with a thunderous crash. Breaching the pool fence, they fanned out, weapons raised, shouting commands in staccato bursts. "Drop the weapon! On your knees!" Karen froze, tears streaming as she stared at her reflection in the pool's rippling surface. Deputy Commander Ellis, helmet gleaming, sprinted to our side and took charge. "Secure the shooter! Medics to lane 3. Karen's wail hit a new pitch as she dropped the pistol into the pool with a gasp that sent ripples across the water. Officers cuffed her trembling wrists and led her away, her floral blouse drenched in panic more than sweat. The medics crashed through the gate, rushing to David's side, applying pressure to the wound as they loaded him onto a stretcher with practiced precision. His eyes flicked open long enough to catch mine, fear mingled with trust as he mouthed, "Go!" But before I could follow, the SWAT team sealed off the area, ushering me back behind a perimeter line marked by yellow tape. The world shrank to the staccato rhythm of police radios and the hiss of paramedics' oxygen tanks. Neighbors huddled on the grass, faces ghost white, clutching towels and iced drinks they could no longer taste. I stepped into the path of Deputy Ellis, nodding toward David's frantic transport. He placed a firm hand on my shoulder. "Mr. Lee, we've got this, but we need your statement fast." "What happened?" I drew in a shuddering breath, voice barely more than a whisper. "Karen shot him." David tried to calm her down after she started screaming about noise levels. "She just lost it." Ellis's jaw tightened. "We'll need names of witnesses and any other evidence." "I saw you filming." I held up my phone, its screen still broadcasting live. "It's streaming. Everyone saw." He nodded curtly, already signaling for a forensics team. "Good. That'll help us corroborate events." While officers questioned shaken guests and began photographing the scene, I replayed the flash of Karen's gun, the look of disbelief on David's face. Fury flared and what her entitlement, at the way she'd weaponized her authority, at the senseless violence. The neon pool party banner drooped under the weight of red and blue lights. I snapped my phone shut and turned to the gathering crowd. "Listen up, this doesn't end here. Tonight, we hold her accountable, not just for the bullet, but for every time her petty crusade endangered our peace of mind." A hush fell as cameras swiveled back toward me. "Share what you saw, where you were, and let's build the strongest case possible." No loopholes, no cover-ups. Are you with me? Murmurs of assent rippled through the group faces steeled by outrage and solidarity. I slipped past the police barrier toward David's open door of the ambulance, but Ellis's hand on my arm turned me back. Focus on witnesses now. We'll get your friend to trauma stable for now. Gritting my teeth, I nodded and scanned for familiar faces. Carla, in a soaking sundress, trembling as she processed the chaos. Mr. Graves, whose teenage daughter sobbed against his shoulder. Even Karen's own teenage son, face pale, watching his mother being placed into a cruiser, handcuffed. She lifted a tear-streaked glance in my direction before her eyes slid shut in shame. Witness statements poured in. Karen's repeated threats after loud music, her prior attempts to fine partygoers for minor infractions, even her text messages touting her right to maintain peace. Each nugget of evidence fueled a growing narrative of abuse of power and this time, an almost fatal crossing of the line. As the night deepened, I organized the collected testimonies into folders. Video clips, witness lists, Karen's messages, and our recorded calls to 911. This was no petty HOA dispute, it was a criminal case, with felony charges looming. At the precinct, I gave my formal statement, detailing every step from that first gunshot to the SWAT breach. Detectives pored over my live stream, isolating audio spikes, timestamping Karen's declarations. When I finished, one detective, her badge reading Hernandez, looked up and said quietly, "You did good. We'll make sure justice is done." Relief and resolve mingled in my chest. The story was only beginning. In the pre-dawn hours, I returned to the scene, map and statement in hand, determined to support our detectives' efforts. Yellow crime scene tape fluttered under the dim streetlights, and pool chairs were fenced off like relics of a disrupted Sunday fair. My phone buzzed with notifications. News outlets requesting interviews, attorney calls, concerned messages from out-of-town friends. Yet I focused on the task at hand, organizing the evidence into coherent exhibits for the district attorney. As detectives interviewed me under fluorescent lights in the interrogation room, I recounted Karen's pattern of petty enforcement fines for using white towels, noise complaints over children's laughter, threats to report pets for barking. They listened, nodding at the corroborative weight of multiple testimonies. Then I turned up the heat with the twist that would seal her fate. Text messages between Karen and her HOA board members discussing cleansing the community and using emergency powers to remove dissenters before it got out of hand. Detective Hernandez's eyes widened as she scrolled through printed logs. "This goes beyond a heat of the moment scary, it's evidence of premeditation," she murmured. News helicopters patrolled overhead as the DA's office prepared formal charges. Knee-jerk speculation had briefly whipped the pool party incident toward dark narratives of vigilante justice, but with the extant text threads, dispatch logs, and my live stream clips, the prosecution laid out a robust case for attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and malicious use of emergency services. The press release quoted me, "Our community's safety was violated not by outside forces, but by someone entrusted to uphold order. I stand with the victims and local law enforcement to see accountability realized." Community outrage coalesced into activism. A rally formed at the entrance to Birchwood Circle, neighbors brandishing placards reading, "End HOA impunity, justice for David, and accountability saves lives." I joined them, wearing a jacket over my suit, Titan at my side, offering quiet comfort to anyone who approached, answering questions, and lending my voice to unity rather than vengeance. Then, a surprising ally emerged. One of Karen's closest confidants on the HOA board, Ms. Whitaker, released a public apology video. Tearfully, she described how she'd once admired Karen's dedication to community order, but now recognized her methods were dangerous and unlawful. She provided the board's internal minutes where emergency measures were discussed, the missing link that tied Karen's deranged actions to her position of HOA leadership. That internal document shifted the narrative from individual lapse to systemic failure, ensuring the entire board would face scrutiny for negligent supervision. The trial was swift and public. Courtroom seats filled with neighbors, each claiming their seat as witness to Karen's descent from petty dictator to violent aggressor. As jurors took their places, I sat quietly in the front row, David's recovered hospital discharge papers and the bucket of evidence, Karen's pistol, her notes, and my recorded calls on display beside the prosecution's bench. The prosecutor's opening statement hammered the contrast between Karen's self-proclaimed watchdog role and the stark reality of her actions. She recruited inquisition and delivered near execution. The defense attempted to frame the incident as a tragic error of judgment, but the cascade of evidence quashed that narrative. Witness after witness took the stand. The teen who had nearly fallen into the pool when Karen shouted at his music. The elderly couple whose calls for help had delayed medical response. The HOA gardener fined for repainting a bench. Then David testified, his voice firm despite the scar that still marked his side, describing his rush to calm Karen and her sudden, panicked shot. The courtroom was silent as he delivered the most damning twist. Karen's own husband had once reprimanded her for using her home office to report neighbors to the FBI, not for national security reasons, but for personal disputes. Her fixation on control extended beyond HOA, a deeply rooted sense of entitlement, unbounded by community norms. When closing arguments concluded, I watched jurors deliberate as members of the community, not strangers to the pool party. The gavel fell, and the foreperson announced the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Gasps rippled through the courtroom, quickly followed by tears of relief and applause. Karen's face flushed as the judge pronounced a sentence of 8 years, a restitution order to David's medical fund, and permanent disqualification from any HOA role or firearm ownership. Outside the courthouse, I addressed reporters. Today, justice reaffirmed that no one is above the law, regardless of title or social standing. I've seen communities fractured by entitlement, but I've seen this one come together in the face of violence. May this verdict deter others who wield unchecked power. Cameras flashed as I turned, walking back to my parked car with Titan at my side. The months that followed were dedicated to healing and reform. I collaborated with county supervisors to draft the Community Safety and Oversight Act, requiring third-party audits for all active HOAs, mandatory conflict resolution training for board members, and swift review of any documented use of security or emergency services. The act passed unanimously, capped by a ribbon cutting at our newly rebranded community center, the Hall of Unity and Safety. On the anniversary of the pool party shooting, we held a memorial swim no music complaints allowed where neighbors dove into the water together, a symbol of solidarity washing away the shadows of that fateful day. David joined us, back to full health, diving alongside children as Titan watched from the deck, ever vigilant but joyful. In the serenity of the receding sun, I stood by the water's edge, watching waves lap gently against the pool tiles, the ghost of that gunshot fading into distant memory. I took my phone and posted a final call to action in our community group. When authority becomes terror, how do we rebuild trust? Share your stories of reclaiming safety and community. After all, healing starts when we hold each other accountable. As night settled, the pool lights shimmered like stars, reflecting our journey from chaos to cohesion. And I knew that, while one Karen's reign ended, the vigilance and unity we forged would safeguard our neighborhood for generations to come.